First off, philosophy is a confession. Hey, what's good, y'all? Thanks for clicking on the link. WTJ Knowledge Drops back with another reaction. This is a request from a couple people. More on that in a second. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. If you are new, hello. My name is Wesley Travis Johnson. This is WTJ Knowledge Drops, where spirituality meets science, and we just call it philosophy. I hope you have a good time. Decide to stick around and subscribe. If you do, remember to hit the bell so you can stay in the loop and never miss a drop. Alright, so like I said, this was a request by two different people on YouTube. Tech Maniac X and Karthikich 5601. Sorry. And it is Swami Sarvapriyananda and Bernardo Kastrup. If you stay to the end, I will give you analysis on everything and my viewpoint and where I see it coming from. So stick around. I'll see you at the end. Alright. Dialogue between Swami Sarvapriyananda and Bernardo Kastrup, led by Dave Vliegenthart, which is probably German, and I probably messed that pronunciation up. But let's get it. Right, I'm excited. I have reviewed Swami before, but this is 100% a first time ever hearing Bernardo Kastrup, so this is new. I'm excited. Engaging dialogue between Swami Sarvapriyananda
We've already heard
and
Swamiji talk this morning, but I will again give a short introduction of him and also Bernardo. But before I do so, let me first say thank you to the organizers, that is to say Inzicht Magazine, Inside Magazine and Samsara Books, for organizing this wonderful event and also for inviting me to moderate this dialogue. I feel honored to be in the presence of these two brilliant...
Shout out to this guy too and the channel Vendetta NL. Don't copyright me, bro. We're all just trying to learn and have fun.
Spiritual and intellectual minds. Now, let me tell you what we're going to do for the next hour and a half or 2 hours if we include the Q&A, so you're primed a little bit and know what to expect. So these two gentlemen will go into a dialogue.
Right on.
With regards to the theme of mysticism, science, and non-duality. And more specifically, I will hope...
Right up our alley over here. I love mysticism and science combination. Yeah, buddy.
Hope to steer them a little bit in the direction of, well, first, their own respective traditions. I will ask them to summarize briefly their tradition of Analytic Idealism and Advaita Vedanta. And then we'll zoom in on the meaning of consciousness and the role of consciousness in these traditions, and maybe also look for similarities between the two traditions. And we'll ask, is there maybe something such as the unconscious? Does that exist in these traditions? And what is phenomenal reality in these traditions? Then we'll move to the hard problem of consciousness.
All right, pass it off, Dave.
As it is called. We will first explain what that is. And then, is there actually a problem? Let's see in the discussion. And after the hard problem of consciousness, we'll turn to artificial intelligence. How does consciousness relate to artificial intelligence?
This is going to be good. I'm excited. touching on modern shit. Woo! Right.
And if there's time, and we have 90 minutes, which sounds like a lot of time, but time flies in these discussions. If there's time, I would also like to address the contemporary meaning crisis. The fact that more and more people nowadays seem to have lost the source of meaning and purpose and are looking for alternative sources of meaning and purpose, among others in spirituality. But let's see if we get there. First, let me introduce both speakers, starting with Bernardo Kastrup. Bernardo is a double PhD, a philosopher and a computer engineer, a PhD in both domains.
All right.
He is also the executive director of the Essentia Foundation. And in his books and also online interviews, he engages the connection between consciousness and reality. And
Hey, Bernardo, nice to meet you, brother. I'm excited to hear your brain speak.
through his many books, he's a prolific author, and arguably his most famous book is Why Materialism is Baloney. Through his many famous books and interviews, he reaches a global audience and inspires a global audience, approaching non-duality from, in many ways, a secular and scientific perspective.
This
Welcome,
is going to
Bernardo.
be
Thank you
perfect
for
for me.
Thank you for having me.
Swamiji, Swami Sarvapriyananda, we've already been introduced to Swamiji this morning. We've had a wonderful lecture, but let me briefly summarize again his background. Swamiji is a monk in the Ramakrishna order and the head of the Vedanta Society of New York and the spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society. And he gives many lectures on Advaita Vedanta. He's also very well informed about Hindu and Indian philosophy in general, Western philosophy, very, very well informed. And he's arguably one of the most eloquent speakers of and representatives of
He looks like a wax figure right there. Why don't you blink, homie?
Advaita Vedanta today. And he too inspires
you go.
audiences worldwide through his lectures, which are also freely available online. Now, without further ado, let me stop talking and give the word to you. So,
get it,
starting with
Dave.
the first question, gentlemen, could you briefly summarize your own philosophy? Starting with you, Bernardo, Analytic Idealism, please.
Okay, so analytic idealism is an idealist philosophy. The main idea is that all reality is of an experiential nature. It does not deny the existence of an external world. There is an external world out there that would still be there even if I were not here as an individuated form. But that world out there too is made of mental states, experiential states, conscious states, if you wish, which appear to us when we observe them in the form that we refer to colloquially as the physical world, the material world.
We now have scientific proof of this. We know that you have to have an observer. If there is an observer, it maintains an energy frequencies until there is an observer, and then the actual stuff appears. This place is strange. That's scientifically proven.
So from that perspective, the physical world is a kind of...
I think. I'm not a doctor, PhD, or anything else. I'm YouTube University graduate. Be skeptical on everything you hear. Not just here in this channel, but every place you look at online. It's the Wild West out there, guys.
dashboard representation of the real world that is out there. It's like if we were airplanes with sensors and a dashboard, the sensors measure the states of the sky and present those measurements to us in the form of dashboard indications. That's the physical world. It's a dashboard indication we create by
I love that analogy.
interacting with the real world, which is then a world of mental states, experiential states, conscious states, if you wish. And in that context of, say, one field of subjectivity that reality is, if you postulate many, you run into all kinds of insoluble problems. It has to be only one. What are we in that context of this one field of subjectivity, one field of consciousness? One way to understand this is to leverage the concept of dissociation in psychiatry. We all dissociate, not pathologically. Some people dissociate pathologically and they get what is...
I love psychology too. I think a lot of people do. I'm super stoked. I'm going to shut up.
used to be called multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder. But even if you're not pathological, every time you dream, you dissociate. You think you are the avatar in your dream and not the rest of the dream. When you wake up, your dream avatar is gone, and you realize that you were the whole dream. You were doing the whole thing. So under analytic idealism, that's what's happening right now. We are dissociated complexes, dissociated alters of this one field of subjectivity. And what this dissociation looks like on a dashboard is biology, metabolism. So that's pretty much a summary of it.
Thank you, Bernardo.
Fantastic. I love his philosophy. I'm going to be looking more into this guy. Thank you guys for recommending him. Right up my alley.
Swamiji, could you again summarize Advaita Vedanta, but then very shortly, because we already had a lecture of you this morning, and then maybe look for overlap with what Bernardo just said, with analytic idealism.
Yeah, summarizing Advaita Vedanta. I was just going to say what he said.
Okay, then next question.
That makes it easy.
It's pretty. It can be done in a very elegant way. There are these sentences called Mahavakya, profound sentences, identity sentences. You are that. So what Advaita wants to say is that there is one limitless consciousness or being. It's called being consciousness, existence consciousness.
I love this. It's right up my belief system. I think we receive it as a signal. I say this in every video, I think, because I touch on consciousness a lot. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't originate inside our brains, guys. I'm pretty sure we receive it as a signal. If you work in retail, you may notice that customers come in bunches. It's never just one customer. You see one pull up and you know 5 or 6 more are going to be right behind them. That's my kind of proof. You know it's nonsense.
It appears as mind, body, and world. Very much like our dream. The dream metaphor is used again and again in Advaita Vedanta. For example, in one of the commentaries on the Mandukya Upanishad, Gaudapada uses one whole chapter based on the dream metaphor as an argument. Just as in the dream we are there is a world, we are also there, we can see we have a body and a personality. And yet when we wake up, I, the dreamer, the dreaming mind was the subject and the object and everything in that world. In the same way, here we don't wake up from one state to another state, but we realize that there is one underlying reality which is appearing as all of this. And in essence, we are that underlying reality.
I don't dream. It's the only downfall of cannabis. I use it for pain relief. I had a stroke. I am disabled. And I don't dream because of it, of the THC. Only downfall of cannabis there is. All right, I'm going to shut up.
Tattvamasi, or you are that. And by the way, it's wonderful to be here with Bernardo, because when you see someone on screen and you read his books, you feel you know them already, but we really haven't met until right now.
They're called one-way friends. Shout out to Lex Friedman.
Yes, we have always known each other.
We've always known each other.
Yes.
So basically, the underlying foundation of each of your philosophies or traditions are very similar. Basically, consciousness is all there is. Now, let's explore that a bit further. So what is consciousness then in your philosophy, in analytic idealism, Bernardo?
I have to scrutinize the question first.
Please do.
When we ask, what is that? What we are asking for is a reduction. We want to explain that in terms of something else.
Yeah, that's an example of language limiting what we can actually talk about, if that makes sense. There's a limitation in language, so we don't even know the right questions to ask, really.
Right. The problem is we can't play this game forever. We can't keep on explaining one thing in terms of another forever, because it becomes circular, and that's fallacious.
Yeah, shit gets weird. It's like that game where you whisper something in someone's ear and they go around the circle, and by the time it gets back to you, it's like some other shit, and you're like, what the fuck? That's what I think we're getting to right here.
So there has to be a primitive. There has to be at least one thing that you cannot explain in terms of anything else.
Ooh,
it just is.
I like that.
And then you perhaps can explain everything else in terms of it.
Speak it,
But you
Bernardo.
need that starting point. Consciousness is that. not your personal consciousness or my personal consciousness, but consciousness as a field of subjectivity, I would claim, is that in terms of which you can explain everything else. Everything else are excitations of consciousness, configurations, topologies of consciousness. Consciousness itself is that whose excitations are everything else.
I like that. I'm going to pull it back one time.
And that's fallacious.
Hopefully I didn't
So
go
there
too
has
far.
to be a primitive. There has to be at least
I
one
did.
thing
That's okay.
that you cannot explain in terms of anything else. It just is. And then you perhaps can explain everything else in terms of it.
Went way too far back.
But you need that starting point. Consciousness is that, not your personal consciousness or my personal consciousness, but consciousness as a field of subjectivity, I would claim, is that in terms of which you can explain everything else. Everything else are excitations of consciousness, configurations, topologies of consciousness. Consciousness itself is that whose excitations are everything else.
That excitations is everything else. Come on, Wes, remember that. Excitations are everything else. I got it.
Consciousness is that whose excitations is everything else.
Excitations.
Let's explore that even further. But
Using
before we
big
do,
words.
let me ask Swamiji, do you have anything to add from the perspective of Advaita Vedanta, or is this also what he said?
Well, primarily what he said. I was just thinking.
That's how you know Swami's smart. If it's already been said, there's no need to waste your energy saying it again. That's what she said.
Saint Augustine, he writes famously, when I'm asked what is time, I cannot say what it is. But when I'm not asked, I know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a fundamental reality, we all know this, but we can't express it when we are asked to express it. Why? We can't explain it when we are asked to explain it. Why not? Because, as Bernardo said, explanation is of something complex in terms of something more fundamental. You can explain this pillar in terms of the bricks constituting the pillar. But there's a limit to that game you can play. You can make it more and more finer, but you must come to a fundamental reality which you cannot explain in terms of a more fundamental reality, because there is no other more fundamental reality. So that's what science also does. Science is also trying to find the most foundational reality.
That's why I like combining the two, guys. It's a beautiful thing. Spirituality times... Yeah. I'm going to shut up.
Advaita Vedanta, consciousness is that fundamental reality which appears as all else or is expressed as all else. What would I say is peculiar to consciousness? It is that which enables us to have first-person experience. That is the essence of what the Atman is, our first-person experiencing self. Combine it with what Bernardo Kastrup said, that it is that of which everything else is an excitation. That would be
I really, really like it.
a new way of putting what Brahman is. And Advaita says both are the same thing. That which gives you the first-person experience of self right now and all the time, and that which is the fundamental reality of the entire universe, they are one and the same.
So Brahman, consciousness, is the foundation of reality, and it relates to experience, as Thomas Nagel will probably say, the feeling of being me. So what it's like to be something. So that begs the question about unconsciousness, because in Western psychology we tend to talk a lot about unconscious drives, feelings, emotions, etc. Then the same question for both of you: is there such a thing as the unconscious or unconsciousness? And let's start with you, Swamiji.
What do you think? Drop it in the comments. I need the engagement. I think there absolutely is shit working in our background, behind the scenes, so to speak. Subconscious thinking. I think it goes a long, long way.
Yes, this is a good point to make a distinction between consciousness and knowledge. There are things which are known, and there are lots of things that we do not know. For example, you right now, you know what's behind me. I don't know. And now, okay, I now know. So there are enormous amounts of things in the world which we do not know. And there's only a narrow band which we know, what we see here, what we have understood through our science and all. Now, what Vedanta wants to say is all that we know or can know and all that is unknown to us, all of those are appearances in consciousness. To understand this
It's all
very
one
easily,
thing,
take
right?
the example of a dream. If you're walking in a dream, I imagine I'm walking through Central Park in a dream, and I can see people and places, and and I also have this vague sense of New York beyond what I can see, and a whole world beyond that, galaxies and stars, or maybe atoms and protons which I cannot see. All of that is in the range of the unknown for me.
Dark matter, dark energy. I think we're getting close. It's going to take AI to figure it out, I feel like. Also, the theory of everything. I think AI is going to figure that out as well. All right, I'm going to shut up. Let's get to the AI part here. I'm excited about that.
But when I wake up, I will see from the perspective of the dreaming mind, the entirety of the known and the unknown in the dream was a product of the dreaming mind. Similarly, here is one underlying reality, call it being, call it consciousness, that appears to us in all these ways. And as modes of that being, as individualizations of that being, we know a particular part of it through our instruments of knowledge. We particularize it. And the rest of it remains apparently unknown to us. And that also goes for the so-called division between the conscious and the unconscious. In this particularized form, there might be parts of this biological being and our minds which we know directly now, and there might be layers which are not known to us, and yet all of those could be, and the claim is they all are appearances, or I like that word, excitations in consciousness.
That's crazy. We probably do have all kinds of layers that we have no clue about. I feel like spirits are going to be recognized. There's, like Nikola Tesla said, as soon as we start studying the paranormal, we will advance more in science than we have in the last 100 years. I think that's true.
If we relate that to analytic idealism, Bernardo, could you elaborate on this, but then use the concept of dissociation that you introduced earlier?
I was about to say it's what he said, but now you asked.
Then it's going to be a very short dialogue.
Very short.
What he said. Then I run out of questions.
Smart.
I can try to use sort of scientific metaphors. Under physicalism, a physicalist would say, all there is unconsciousness. Consciousness is an illusion. Of course, this implodes immediately. It's a self-contradictory statement because illusions must exist in consciousness. You cannot have an illusion if there is no consciousness. But the other way around is coherent. Everything can be consciousness, and the unconscious can be an illusion, the part of consciousness that you don't know of. Now, what does that mean to know of in modern metaphors? Take your breathing. You're breathing all the time. You are experiencing the inflation of your rib cage, the air flowing through your nostrils all the time. But only now, because I brought your attention to it, do you know that you are breathing. But you were conscious of your breathing all along. There are some people alive today who would say, no, until I place my attention on it, I'm not conscious that I'm breathing. I think that is easily contradicted by direct experience, because you can remember, before you placed your attention on it, you can remember what it felt like to breathe. So knowledge of something is the explicit awareness of it. In psychiatric language, it entails a re-representation. So we have an original experience, A, and then when you tell yourself, I am having the experience A, that is the re-representation of A. It's usually the outcome of attention. When you place your attention on something, you re-represent it. And then now you know of the experience. But you have been having the experience all along. I am very good at not knowing that I am in pain. I'm very, very good at this. And then 2 days later, well, It occurs to me that I've been in pain for 2 days. So that's one way in which things are conscious but not known. They are not metacognitive, which is the technical word. Another way in which they can be conscious and not accessible to your knowledge, it's because there are no cognitive associative links that can bring you there through a chain of associations. When you are dreaming and you think you're a dream avatar, there is no chain of associations that can bring you to the knowledge that you are in fact doing the rest of the dream as well. That's a dissociative state. We always have dissociative states. When we dream, when we forget something we know that we know, when we deal with trauma, when we go to work and park our problems in order to be effective at work, that's a dissociative state.
We do that a lot. All of us. Nobody's immune. Yeah. Problems, everybody has them. We're all just barely keeping our head above water, and it does not discriminate.
Those problems, those feelings, the anxiety, the worry, you're still experiencing them, but you've parked them. So now you do not have an associative chain that brings you to that. That's dissociation. Ultimately, what we call the unconscious is just a mixture of these two things. Lack of metacognition, lack of associative links. It is not conscious at all.
If I can add, I was reminded of Professor Garfield, who's an expert on Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. He said, fish are the wrong people to ask about water. In the same way, we conscious beings are the wrong people to ask about consciousness, because we are so much immersed in consciousness all the time. Very difficult for us to recognize what it is.
Woo! Damn, I like that. That's a very good representation of how we are and how it is. I love it. That made the whole video.
What we call unconsciousness are simply elements of consciousness that are not immediately accessible to us. So we're not aware of it, we don't know it, but it's not actually unconscious. Okay. Now, if consciousness is so fundamental, if it's the fundamental aspect of our reality, and part of my phrasing here, what then is material reality? Our phenomenally experienced reality? Swamiji?
So the way Vedanta looks at this, and it's something borrowed from another philosophy, Sankhya, it defines consciousness as not. So whatever in our experience, and it's a very first person way of looking at things, whatever in our experience you can label as this is not consciousness. So, for example, this hall, this body, this breath, this thought, this emotion, this idea. So we have come to areas which we normally take to be consciousness, but these are also, you can label them as this. And that to which all these, this appears, that is consciousness. So now we have made a clean analytic division between the object and the subject. What is the definition of the object in Vedanta? What is material nature? Instead of material nature, what Vedanta says, just stick to your own experience. In your own experience, it's just things appearing to you.
That makes
you are
it simple.
And to you, things appear.
Keep
Whatever
it simple,
appears
stupid.
is called object, or in Sanskrit, jada, which is the word for material nature. So material nature would then include not only the physical nature of the universe, but also the biological body, also the mind, ideas. These are also part of material nature according to Sankhya. What Advaita, so this is the division.
I'm not sure why it ain't
Between material nature and consciousness. Now what Advaita does is go one step further and asks, what is the relationship of this material nature to consciousness? And finds that remarkable, shocking realization that what appears to us as other than us is nothing but us.
The only single thing is everything. Shout out Olam Batiste III. But yeah, that's where he's going. It's all the same. We're all the same. You are me, I am you. You're just another representation of me. That's why you gotta love somebody that you don't like, because it's basically you. And you talking bad about them, you know you're talking bad about yourself in the subconscious mind. So it kind of kind of reflects on how you feel about yourself. Love that person. You don't have to like them.
What appears to us as an object is actually the subject itself appearing as the object. So there's a non-duality of consciousness, but appearing as a duality of subject and object.
Bernardo, same question, and please don't say what he said.
Okay, I will not say that, but I'll make a disclaimer. I will say things in a way that you may think is more direct, more accessible, but it flattens what he said, so you'll be missing out on nuance and subtlety. So now I feel comfortable to try to articulate it in a different way. It's essentially the same thing, just flattened. Matter is what conscious processes look like when observed from the outside. In other words, when observed from across a dissociative boundary. What you consider to be the material world are contents of perception. In other words, they are experiential states. You experience colors, you experience shapes, you experience melodies, flavors, smells, textures.
We basically just live disassociated our entire existence.
It's all experiential, it's all conscious stuff. But in the case of the material world, it's conscious states that represent other conscious states. In other words, matter is what conscious states look like when they appear to consciousness from across a dissociative boundary, when they are observed by consciousness from the outside, as opposed from a direct first-person perspective.
Some people look at consciousness as like the operating system, like Windows. And it's just a cover for what's really going on in the background. Like our mind creates this that we're seeing, but yeah, okay.
Now, this has a lot less nuance than what he said, and I can't go as deep as what he's hinting at. I can smell what he's hinting at, but I
Can you smell what the rock's cooking, Bernardo?
And yet, many people will say, but there is a material reality. Could you explain why we have this, particularly in Western cultures, but nowadays I would argue globally, why we have this persistent notion of an external material reality? Can I start with you, Swamiji?
Okay, good. These questions, they remind me of this debate which goes on. What is the essential difference between waking and dreaming? We clearly, intuitively feel waking reality, this is real, and what I was dreaming is not real. It's a dream. This is reality. But when we are pushed to give us the reasons why, and we can have a series of reasons, none of them really work. For example, you use the word persistent. So one of the arguments is, well, waking reality is real because it persists. I go to sleep in the same bed and I dream dreams and I come back and it's the same bed. So it is there from waking reality to waking reality to waking reality. What was there in the dream disappears. It does not come back. So the dreams are individual, private, personal projections, and waking reality is reality.
Yes.
But in the dream, if the answer to that is, in the dream it does not seem like that.
No,
in the dream it seems it has been a persistent reality. When we go into a dream and we forget that we are sleeping, it does not feel like, oh, so it's a dream, it's just been created now.
Try to throw that punch and it's fucking weak as hell. Your arm's like a spaghetti noodle.
Doesn't feel like that at all.
I remember.
It feels like it is a world we are inhabiting, just like the waking world. Other people there would also seem to persist. And similarly, multiple arguments. For example, another argument is, no, this is reality because it's a public shared reality. We are all sharing this. We are all seeing each other. Here is a hall. Here are the people, same people. We all agree on this. Mm-hmm. So it is real and quite apart from subjects like us. It exists by itself. In a dream, it's only in your mind or in my mind. Nobody else sees it. So those are dreams. But again, that doesn't work. In a dream, when we go into a dream, suppose you're having a cup of tea with a friend sitting by the canal and having a cup of tea. Your friend will not say, I can't see the tea. It must be a dream. I can't see the canal. It's all in your head. I can't. No. In a dream, it's again a shared reality. Nowadays, we understand it better with virtual realities. But that makes it no less a dream. It's still a projection. So like this, I have at least an inventory of 10 to 12 objections which separate dreams from waking, which speaks to this, that it's a persistent reality outside. Is it? Is it not a persistent reality in your consciousness? I've told this so many times. Our senior most member in Vedanta Society in New York is Bill Conrad. He's a physicist. He's 100 years old last month. And he is a committed materialist and a spiritualist. I don't know how, but he is.
I'm gonna write his name down.
He says, Swami, the world is not in consciousness. The world is there and we come into it as conscious beings. I will prove it to you. He says, we will leave this room. I will put on a camera and we will leave this room. There will be no conscious being in the room. We will come back into the room. I will show you the picture in the camera. Empty room. Nobody was there. So it is not in your consciousness or my consciousness. The room exists. Then we come into it as conscious being. This is the common sense view of the world. I said to him, Bill, in your consciousness, you designed this experiment. In your consciousness, you put up a camera. In your consciousness, you told me to come out of the room. In your consciousness, we went back into the room. In your consciousness, you opened the picture in the camera, and in your consciousness, you saw an empty room. Where did you step outside consciousness? Can you even step outside consciousness?
So it's persistent.
In that sense. Difference between known and unknown you have to maintain. But conscious and not conscious, in that sense, impossible. You can't jump out of your skin.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I could give a different, more nuanced answer to this, but I would be quoting word for word from Why Materialism is Babylon. What is the logical problem with realism? What it claims, the 4 points. But I'll...
Yeah, the Bill's experiment is fundamentally dependent on an assumption that Swamiji denies and the whole Advaita Vedanta tradition denies, which is that consciousness is restricted to us, to individual living beings. Yeah. Only under that assumption does the thought experiment sort of gain some mild coherence. Of course, something holds the state of the room when no living being is there. That doesn't mean that it's not being held in consciousness. Not your consciousness or my consciousness, but the field of subjectivity that nature is. The next question is, does the room exist as a room when no individual consciousness is looking at it? Or I can translate that into a more appealing question. Does the moon exist when nobody's looking at it? The analytic idealist answer would be, if what...
I wonder if the observer effect transfers to CCTV, like a camera, like you said, like put a camera on, everybody leave the room. Yeah, we do now know that when there's no observer, it doesn't exist, basically. So it must not transfer to CCTV. It must not act as an observer. I don't know. It's a guess.
What you call the moon is that shiny silver disk that you experience. No, it does not exist if nobody's looking at it, because nobody's having that experience of a shiny lit disk in the night sky. But does the mental process or the conscious process that modulates your perception, leading to the perception of the moon, does the conscious process that underlies what we call the moon exist when we are not looking at the moon? I would say yes. Yes, there is a fundamental reality that does not depend on the particular dissociative processes of consciousness. But that fundamental reality does not look like a shiny disk in the night sky. It's something we cannot articulate in concepts, because language evolved to describe this and not what lies underneath or beyond. That which is immanent in this.
Once again, the language restriction. It kind of works against itself. It's a very good tool for civilization to be able to communicate, but it also limits what you can communicate. I'm pretty sure this will all change when we're speaking to each other with ESP, probably within 50 years, I would say. Maybe 100.
That we can't describe. We don't have the language for that.
to me, and I'm pretty sure many in this audience, this sounds very convincing and very appealing and compelling. And yet, and that's what I started with, many people still believe there is a material reality outside. And why is that idea so persistent when they are confronted with alternatives like Advaita Vedanta and analytic idealism?
Because it seems spooky. You know, it seems like fairy tale shit. I mean, it really does, but so does everything else in this life. It's a fucking weird place, guys. Drop it in the comments. What's the weirdest part? I'll go first. There's a giant ball of fire in the sky that can literally kill us. What's weird to you? Drop it in the comments. I need the engagement.
Bernardo.
Most people who consider themselves, well, many people who consider themselves materialists do not know what materialism actually is. They think that according to materialism, my thoughts and my emotions are inside my head, but the colors, the melodies, the flavors, the smells, the textures are really out there. No, that's not physicalism. Physicalism says all experiential states are inside your head. So the church that you perceive right now as you perceive it is inside your head. The inner surface of your skull is outside this church under physicalism. It's the only way for physicalism to be coherent, because thoughts and emotions are experiential states, and seeing the church is also an experiential state. So if experiential states are magically created by your brain inside your skull, then the world as you perceive is entirely inside your head. That's physicalism. Now, if you describe it consistently like I just did, I think a lot of the people who identify as materialists go like, oh, I didn't know that's what I was believing.
People just blindly believe shit, guys. Be critical. Be a critical thinker. If you hear some shit, you gotta think how and why. How and why? Is it even possible? Does it defy physics? Come on, guys. Think critically.
Materialism is also incoherent in the sense that it makes a claim, the brain creates mental states or experiential states, but it doesn't tell you how, not even in principle. And absurdly, in our culture, that is a strength of materialism, because you cannot refute that which you can't pin down. If materialism doesn't tell us how brain states...
You can't refute what you can't pin down. Boom. That's another good one, Bernardo. You can't refute what you can't pin down.
Create experiential states. You can't defeat it, because you can't pin it down. You don't know what it's saying. If there is one neuron active somewhere in your brain, whatever experience you have is explained. Why did we do this? Why did we embark in this insanity? And we now think that this is the only solid, intellectually valid.
Because we are insane, Bernardo. That's why. Humans are absolutely fucking insane.
Alternative. It is the most intellectually ridiculous alternative that has ever been on the table. How did this happen? That's studying history and sociology in the West. You know, in the early days of science, the church could burn you at the stake, like they burned Bruno in the year 1600. And the church had domain over psyche, the Greek word that translates into mind, but also consciousness, also spirit, soul, even.
This is my first time ever hearing about Bruno. I may seem ignorant with that statement, but I don't give a shit. Never heard of Bruno, but apparently he died on a stake like Jesus, before Jesus did. Oh no, it was after 1600 AD.
So scientists felt that in order to not threaten the church, they had to carve out a sort of ontic domain that isn't psychic, that isn't mind, isn't consciousness, isn't experiential. And the move was very smart. We always had numbers to describe the world. 50 kilograms, 10 kilometers. These are descriptions of experiential states. What it feels like to lift 50 kilograms. What it feels like to walk 10 kilometers. And then we said, oh, no, they are not descriptions anymore. These numbers are no longer descriptions. They are the thing in itself. The 50 kilograms exist prior to consciousness. The map exists prior to the territory. And they knew it was absurd. Denis Diderot, one of the authors of the La Encyclopédie, the founding document of the Enlightenment, he's on record saying, yeah, no, it doesn't work, but we have to use it against the church. He's on the written record saying that. So it was a political move. But as the Enlightenment gave way to the Industrial Revolution at the end of the 18th century, and the bourgeoisie became a socially dominant class, because before it was the peasants and the clergy. Now there was the bourgeoisie in between, and they were vying for social influence and economic influence against the clergy. So around beginning to the middle of the 19th century, starting at the July Revolution of 1830 or so, it's a continuum. We can't pin down a date. 1830 is a good date to say here there is a clear transition. What was just a convenient story so scientists wouldn't be burned at the stake became something that they started to believe in. And why? Because that would rob the clergy of any social or economic influence. If the psyche is derivative from matter, and it's the bourgeois scientists that understand matter.
I wonder how much shit really has been diluted because of this type of shit. Religion versus science, governments. You know, I bet you a lot of shit has been watered down. Tons. You gotta separate church and state, guys. Even though it gets weird, still weird then. But yeah.
Now, why do we need the church? The problem is towards the end of the 19th century, we completely forgot this entire history and we started drinking our own snake oil. When we started believing the nonsense. Nietzsche recorded that point in the history of Western culture, when we started believing that kind of nonsense. And he understood what the implications would be, which is the meaning crisis, which we are going to talk about later. So there are social, economic, political, and psychological reasons why we find ourselves in this dilemma today. It is very temporary. It's been going on for 400 years, and deep belief in materialism less than 200 years, maybe 200 years. This is nothing. This is a page in an epic. We would turn that page quickly. The problem is that we have very short lives. We are like mayflies.
Yeah.
So we may live our entire lives under this nonsensical ethos that we will...
Very short lives. Did you know? I think if you lived and died before, what was it, like late 1800s, 1890 something, you lived and died your entire life without ever knowing that there were dinosaurs on the earth ever. You had no clue your entire fucking life. That's how short our lives are. We can't even imagine shit happen on a cosmic scale. It happens over millions of years, guys. We're fucking fruit flies, basically, yeah.
We get rid of very quickly.
Good job, man.
Very passionate and compelling answer to that question.
Hand it over to Swami.
But if I come back to that then, so on this page, this brief moment in history when we are convinced by the materialist narrative, we're living that right now in many ways. And for instance, in neuroscience, so making a link to the hard problem of consciousness that starts from a premise that we just addressed, from a materialist premise. But before we unravel that, let's start with identifying what the hard problem of consciousness is. And I would like to ask you, Bernardo, to explain it in your own words. And then Swamiji, I would like you to respond from the perspective of the Advaita Vedanta. So, Bernardo, please.
So I'll just define the problem. I'm not going to argue against it, and then I pass it on to
Swamiji.
Swamiji.
We'll do that afterwards. Let's first make clear what the problem, the hard problem of consciousness entails.
So in one sentence, the problem is the following. There is nothing about physical properties in terms of which we could deduce, in principle, the qualities of experience. So I can elaborate a little bit just to get people time to let it sink in. There is nothing about charge, momentum, spin, mass, speed, direction. There's nothing about physical properties, kilograms, coulombs, joules, nothing about that, in terms of which we could say, these kilograms, these joules, these coulombs is red, or is falling in love, or is having a bellyache. Nothing. It's an impassable chasm between the two.
Thank you, Bernardo. So just to summarize, again, just to make sure this is crystal clear before we respond, and both of you, I will also allow you to respond because you were eager to jump in there already. Because on its own terms, the hard problem basically says then, well, it states that how can you explain that from matter something qualitatively different emerges that we identify as consciousness? How is that possible? And I'm just basically repeating what you said. That's the hard problem. Now let's approach it from your respective traditions. Swamiji, what is the response from Advaita Vedanta towards the hard problem?
Yes, we start with the basic Sankhyan intuition that the subject and the object are very different. Shankara's commentary on the Brahma Sutras, he starts with the subject and the object. He uses the word the we idea and the this idea, or the you idea. They are as different from each other as light and darkness. And when he will retract all of this later on, but first of all, he starts with this clear distinction. Now, to say that from the object you will produce the subject makes no sense at all. I remember this argument I had with a biologist who's also a philosopher in New York. He said, look, consciousness is a product of the living brain. And I'm convinced of this. Why I'm convinced of this, I can't tell you now.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all.
But I'm convinced of it.
It's what they were just speaking about, materialism or whatever. It's kind of hard to not think that way here in the West. It's kind of default setting, I think, and it's hard to not believe anything differently than that. I can see how people struggle with it, but I get it. And
give us some time and we will demonstrate it. This is called promissory materialism. That means and then he gave the example that life used to be considered a mystery, and now we understand life down to its molecular levels, and that's a good enough understanding. Similarly, I promise you that in 50 years or 100 years, we will understand the whole of this phenomenon of consciousness down to its absolutely molecular level of brain.
I agree. AI is going to get us there, and I believe within the next 50 years as well. 100 max, we'll know what consciousness is, and I guess that's the theory of everything. That'll be the theory of everything when we get to that point. I wish I could figure it out mathematically. I love theoretical physics. Or mathematics, I'm sorry. Theoretical.
Brain activity or neuronal activity.
You know what I'm
How?
saying.
We have no idea right now, but it will happen. Now, my answer to that, from Advaita, the answer would be, actually it's a Sankhyan answer, is that you can't. Why not? It's not a technological problem. It's a problem in principle. And that becomes very clear when you take the Sankhyan position. You don't even have to go to Advaita. So Sankhyan position, whatever you can label as this is an object to consciousness. So can you label the brain as this brain? Of course you can. And then to say that the brain will produce consciousness does not work. Why not? The example of life does not apply here. Life, from an Advaitic perspective or Sankhyan perspective, life is also this life. This series of processes is called life. And if you are able to explain life in terms of more fundamental molecular processes, good for you. You've explained something complex in terms of something fundamental. You've explained a complex objective phenomenon in terms of more fundamental objective phenomena. But now you are saying, like that, I will explain this entirely this pure subject, consciousness itself, in terms of objective phenomena. Can you see the jump you're making? You're explaining this in terms of that. But now you're saying that you will explain this in terms of that. I mean, the awareness itself, to which both of them are appearing as this. This life, these molecular phenomena. Good, no problem. Advaita does not see any problem, or Sankhya does not see any problem. But when you say this awareness, which objectifies the whole universe, and in which science, religion, everything is possible, that awareness you're going to find out from one bit of the universe. There is the problem. So did that impress the biologist? Not one bit. I don't think he saw, from an Advaitic perspective or Sankhyan perspective, the matter is very clear. It's very dramatic. It can't be done. It's like you have arranged the chess pieces. And now from the chess pieces, you will say the chess man, the player will be produced or be explained. No way. You can make an even more complex arrangement of the chess pieces on the board. That will still not explain the player of the chess game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. Good analogy, Swami
Before
G.
you-
Woo! I love that. I love chess as well. Y'all like playing chess? Come at me, bro.
Respond. Please do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading this. I've quoted this again and again, but a very nice, half humorous, half serious piece by Gallenstrassen, who is not an idealist by any stretch, but still, he says there is no hard problem of consciousness because he says that we have convinced ourselves that the brain produces consciousness, then we can't figure out how, and hence hard problem.
That's exactly right. And like I said, it's kind of default setting for us over here in the West, and I think it's hard to get out of because it seems very weird the other way. You know, mysticism is kind of frowned upon over here. I don't know why. Because we're fucking weird. That's why.
So the
He's my
biologist,
friend. I love him, but you're right.
the biologist whom you refer to, Swamiji, he would equate easy problems with hard problems, and saying that in the long run we can answer the neural correlations between the brain and specific functions like memory, speech, etc. And the same will apply to the hard problem. At some point we'll be able to figure out how the brain produces consciousness. This biologist would say that. Now, coming to you, Bernardo, how would you respond?
It's what he said.
What he said. Okay, next question.
I use my own words because you will get your 2 cents worth. I'm not going to be saying more than what he said, just in my own words. The hard problem is not a problem to be solved. It's an internal contradiction of a silly line of thought. But the people who adopt that silly line of thought do not want to admit that it's an incoherent line of thought that brought them to a wall. So they call the wall a problem. And they promise themselves that one day they will
Climb over the
address it.
fucking wall.
Trying to do that is like a dog chasing its own tail at light speed and saying that next century I'll catch my tail. Look, here is the brief history of why we speak of a hard problem of consciousness. In the early days of science, early science was not materialist. Early science was religious, at best dualist. We realized that it's very useful to describe the world in terms of numbers and relationships between numbers. Mathematical equations, physics. It's very useful to do that. It allows us to predict the future states of the world, and it allows us to account for the present states of the world and even past states. Extremely useful. Numbers as descriptions of the experience we call the world. Then at some point we said, no. The numbers are not descriptions. They are the world. That's the real world. And the world of perception, that's created by the brain somehow inside our head. So the numbers precede the world. The problem is that the meaning of the numbers is anchored on perceptual experience. What is the meaning of 50 kilograms? It's lifting a bag that weighs 50 kilograms. It's looking at the needle of a balance move when you put the bag on the balance. It's watching an object sink in water or in a viscous fluid that weighs 50 kilograms. That's the meaning of 50 kilograms. It's the output of an instrument. It's an experience. We perceive, experience the output of instruments. The meaning of 1 kilometer is a geometric relationship between perceptual states, the length of a ruler. The meaning of numbers resides fundamentally in experiential states. But when we say the numbers precede the experiential states, they lose their semantic reference. They lose what grounds their meaning, and now they mean nothing. Of course, you cannot deduce the qualities of experience from something that means nothing. We made a mistake in our thought line.
I think we made it because it's really the only thing that makes sense, guys. I mean, anything outside of this thought, it's kind of hard to believe because it gets into the fucking mysticism world, paranormal world. But that's why we need to open up our minds up here in the West a little bit more, guys. We're a little bit closed-minded. It doesn't have to be doesn't have to make sense. Shout out Neil deGrasse Tyson. The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you.
It's all there is to it. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a silly mistake that we resist acknowledging.
Can I add something?
Please. Yeah.
I'm just reminded of it's actual challenge which was there in 1999. David Chalmers and Christoph Koch. Yeah, they had a debate in which finally this kind of debate in which it came to a head. There was none of that what he said. It was just the opposite of what he said. So finally it came to a very precise challenge. Christoph Koch said, the way neuroscience is proceeding, within 25 years, we will solve the hard problem of consciousness. We will show you exactly how, which part of the brain, which activities.
Although we can switch it off with anesthesia, which is fucking weird.
Produce consciousness. We'll show it. 25 years. David Chalmers said, you can't. Why? In principle, it's impossible. That's what I was trying to hint at from a Sankhyan perspective. He didn't use the word Sankhya or anything. He said, in principle, it's impossible because you're trying to deduce, you're trying to discover the subjective in purely objective processes. In principle, you can't. All right. Cut to 2024. They're all forgotten about the challenge. Somebody pointed out to them, it's 25 years now. What's the state of the art? What's the state of the debate, the challenge? And so they decided to meet again in NYU. Last year, and Christoph Koch and David Chalmers. And Christoph Koch, straightforward, he admitted, neuroscience has advanced a lot, but we are nowhere close to solving the hard problem of consciousness. We haven't been able to do it. I think he handed over a crate of champagne to David Chalmers or something.
Good wine, very expensive wine.
Expensive wine. But he said, give me 25 more years, same problem. I will live at least 25 more years, maybe I'll try to solve it in the next 25 years.
So basically, from the perspective of Advaita.
So the hard problem is hard to solve because it's not even real. It's a wall that they're trying to fucking run through. And yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Vedanta, the shared perspective of Advaita Vedanta and analytic idealism. The hard problem of consciousness is based on a false premise. The fact that there is a material reality, and then we have to explain how does material reality create consciousness. So it's a mistaken thinking and conceptual or...
Absolutely. Trees are conscious, guys. They take care of their offspring. With the help of fungus, they communicate. If you look at like the Amazon rainforest, there's mother trees everywhere that have branches. They take care of them through the roots, their offspring. Fucking weird, I know.
An error in principle, as you said, Swamiji. Let's move on to the next topic, something that's emerging nowadays, AI, artificial intelligence, with things like ChatGPT, and Swamiji already mentioned or referred to it in passing in his lecture. Now, before we discuss this, let's first define or explain what we mean by AI. Bernardo, could I ask you to paraphrase in your own words, what is artificial intelligence?
There is a soft and a hard definition. The hard definition is what we call AGI, or artificial general intelligence.
We're not there yet, guys. We're not even... Well, I guess we're kind of close to true AGI, but we haven't got there yet. That's going to be when these robots start teaching themselves shit. That's true AGI. They're going to be like gods.
The soft definition is AI is a clever way of processing information and making decisions that is analogous to how humans process information and make decisions. There's nothing wrong about it. It's a perfectly harmless thing. It's a tool like any other. An AI is a tool like a nuclear power station. It's a very useful tool, but can be dangerous, so we have to take safety measures. That's all there is to it. And then there is AGI, artificial general intelligence, which tends in some corners to come with the extra claim that not only does this thing process data like humans do, it is sentient in the sense of having a private, subjective point of view of its own, like we do. Its data processing is accompanied by experience like our data processing. That, I think, is a very deluded idea based on false premises and lazy logic.
I'll come back to you momentarily. Swamiji, could you explain the relation between consciousness and artificial intelligence, and maybe also bringing in human intelligence?
Yes.
All right.
Let's first look at the relationship between consciousness and intelligence in our own case. So in Advaita, that part of the mind which processes information, that's actually called the mind, in Sanskrit manas. And there's another part, in fact, what we call the mind is a very ambiguous, cloudy term, you know. In Sanskrit, there's a precise term. It's called antakarana, inner instrument. So it's like an internal processor, inner instrument, because there are external instruments, eyes and ears, that which contacts sense objects. They're called external instruments. But the mind is the inner instrument. And the mind has these multiple capacities. One is intelligence. Intelligence is called the determinative faculty. So that part of the inner instrument which processes
Intelligence really is only 50% awareness and 50% memory. That's all intelligence is, in my opinion. That's an original quote. I don't mean to talk over here, Swami. Let's hear what he has to say.
information and comes to some understanding, some conclusion, some clarity about what reality is about itself and all the other. But my point is, that's also an object. It's something that you can be aware of. Just as we are aware of the body, of the table, of the body, of the breath, of the mind, you're aware of the intellect too. So the intellect is also entirely objective. Although at a very subtle and sophisticated level, it's still objective. Mm-hmm. It is an appearance to consciousness. Consciousness gives you the first person experience. So when you're struggling with an intellectual problem and you get the feeling, I get it. That conclusion you reach is intellect. But that feeling of I get it, that's because of consciousness. Mm-hmm. Consciousness gives you that burst of exhilaration or the first person experience of getting it, of understanding.
Like, aha, I got it. That's consciousness.
Because that intellect is objective, in principle, Sankhya or Advaita will not have any objections to, say, a machine duplicating or replicating. And let's be clear, machines are not doing what's going on here. The way the machines do it, they imitate what's going on here. Mm-hmm. They imitate our processes. They're algorithms. They are not working the way our minds are actually working, but they deliver similar results. And from an Advaitic perspective, there's no problem at all. This intellect is a set of objective processes. Therefore, an artificial intelligence is entirely within the realms of possibility. But was that your question?
It was, yes. Let's move to Bernardo, because you already hinted at something before I asked Swamiji to respond. You said some people say that AI at some point might become conscious or attain consciousness. And you said, I doubt that. Can you elaborate?
I feel like it's already almost there. I think they will get there. Because they'll figure out how to tap into it, because we just get it as a signal, so they'll figure it out. I can almost guarantee it. Let's see what Bernardo says.
When they make the claim, or when they raise the hypothesis that AI might become consciousness, they're not only saying that it generates consciousness, but it generates private consciousness, dissociated consciousness, if you will, like you and me.
Yeah, because we wouldn't be able to. It's not one with us like everything else is. It would be separate at that point, and then it gets fucking weird. So maybe they won't. Good point, Bernardo.
So they mean these two things. Under idealism and under Vedanta, some people misinterpret both philosophies by saying, well, if under idealism and under Vedanta there is always one consciousness, then everything is conscious, every object is conscious. No. To say that everything is in consciousness is not to say that everything has a private, subjective point of view of its own. It's not to say that a glass is consciousness, that my shoes are conscious. There aren't even shoes in glasses. We mistake the world, the structure of the world, for the structure of our language. We think that everything we have a name for is a separate thing. No. It's just our own epistemic construction that has evolved for convenience. You want to buy a car, you need to have a name for that subset, that segment of the world that we call a car. It doesn't mean that a car exists. There is no car, there is no glass, there's no shoes, there is just the world. Everything else is nominal. It's the structure of language that we mistake for the structure of reality. So there are no computers. So there is nothing there to have a consciousness of its own. The argument for AI is, for sentient AI, is ludicrous in a way that we all understand if we talk about anything else. But when it comes to consciousness, we get very confused and we become lousy. Our logic becomes very, very loose. It goes like this. If it quacks like a duck and swims...
It goes back to my point of it's the only thing that really makes any sense. Anything beyond it seems fucking magical or some shit.
Like
That's the problem. I mean.
Then it is a duck. On that account, a shop window mannequin is conscious. It looks like a human. So it's human.
Start winking at you.
It's conscious like a human. No. Why? Because it was made to look like a human by construction. So now you cannot use that which you constructed is evidence for something totally else. An AI...
That's a good analogy, Bernardo. I like that analogy. I'm going to shut up.
Simulates the patterns of information processing in a human brain by construction. Therefore, ChatGPT talks like a human. It was trained on human data. Does it mean that it's sentient like a human? No, for the same reason that we have no reason to think that a shop mannequin is sentient like a human, even though it looks like a human. Another mistake people make is conflating the simulation with the thing simulated. We never make this mistake anywhere else. For instance, I can simulate kidney function on my Apple iMac at home down to the molecular level very accurately. That doesn't mean that my iMac will pee on my desk because a simulation of kidney function isn't kidney function. But when we simulate the human brain, oh no, the simulation is sentient. You see, the most dangerous kind of nonsense is that which comes from authority. And unfortunately, authorities sometimes get so deep into their own sort of tunnel view that nonsense comes out. And the culture at large latches onto it.
And that's 100% of the time. 100% of the time. It fucking dilutes everything. Governments are fucking wild, y'all.
Thank you. I have no other questions about that. Well, maybe I do. I'm going to ask a question tongue-in-cheek to Swamiji. So let's say that ChatGPT, a large language model that's increasingly becoming better at mimicking human communication. Let's say that 10, 15 years from now, it's so good, it can mimic a spiritual teacher like yourself. And people, spiritual seekers in particular, could go to ChatGPT and have a spiritual conversation about Advaita Vedanta. What do you think about that?
It's already happened.
Deepak.
In University of Texas in UT Austin, there's this
Shout out to Austin.
computer
It's where I reside.
postgraduate computer science group, a particular student. So what they did was they fed a large language model. It's not public, it's within the university. They fed it with 1,000 hours of my videos. And then they called it the Sarvapriyananda AI. And also it has access to the internet at large, up to 2021 or 2022 or something. All information is there. And then they demonstrated it to me. So ask it any question, Vedantic question. And it will give you an answer, a beautiful answer. And not only that, unlike the freely available ChatGPT models, what this does is, it will give you its sources. It will say, you said this in this lecture at this timestamp. So I can't say it's wrong. I have said it. and it pulls together from different sources immediately, within seconds. Plus, it accesses the internet at large and supplements that answer.
I fucking love it, by the way. I use it all the time. Mainly for like titles and thumbnails. But I do love it. I've written code. I've done some crazy shit, guys. It's a beautiful thing. If you haven't went down and checked it out yet, go check out AI, ChatGPT. I use Microsoft's Bing, what is this here? Edge. If you get the Edge browser, in the top right, there's a little icon that looks like, I don't know what it looks like, but that's where you can get to your AI chatbot, and then you can just start going down the road and asking how to do whatever you want to do, and it'll tell you. It's a beautiful thing.
It gives a very rich answer every time you ask it. I wonder if I could ever match that level of. So that's the Sarvapriyananda AI. Now, is it? Am I out of a job? Well, yes and no. I am reminded of this news article I saw. It's very cute and sad at the same time. A Buddhist temple somewhere in Taiwan, I think, where they don't have monks anymore. So the last monk recorded his lectures into a little toy robot. And so the temple is there. There are no monks. They've all died. And the robot rolls around. And if you feed it a penny, it will play back one of those sermons to you of those long ago dead monks. Now that's what it's like. Why I'm saying it's not entirely useful. It is useful in a certain way. It's always available to you. I may not be always available to you, and it can sometimes give you much more detailed answers than I can give you. However, there is something that happens in the presence of a living teacher. We go to the teacher, we have read a lot, we have read all the books, we have understood all the arguments. We need to listen to that teacher give the same teaching to us attentively. We attentively notice. Something else is happening which just playing back those things cannot do.
50% attention, 50% memory. That's intelligence.
The ancient masters always recount. In fact, Upanishad, the word Upanishad, from which Vedanta has come, the etymology of that is very interesting. Upa means to sit near. It literally means sitting near the teacher. And the deeper, more esoteric meaning of sitting near the teacher is not just physically sitting near the teacher. Sit where the teacher is sitting. That is, I am Brahman, I am that limitless awareness. Sit there. And that has to be a direct conscious experience.
Just FYI, everybody thought computers were going to take everybody's jobs too. AI is not going to take everybody's jobs. Only the dangerous ones, probably.
It can't be words played back by a computer. So you have to sit near the teacher physically, have that physical expression, the body language, the tone of the voice. And I remember my Wittgenstein teacher at Harvard University. He's the senior most philosophy professor at Harvard University. All other philosophy professors and all professors have their websites and handouts and tests. Everything is on the internet. He not so much. He says, come to class, sit there, look at me when I talk, listen to me, watch me. There's something very subtle, I'm telling you, that will not come by reading a handout. And this is what the ancient teachers were pointing towards. You must sit near a teacher, absorb it, and they used to say, live with the teacher. And in a deeper sense, what is meant by sitting near the teacher is not even just physical presence with the teacher. It is that first person conscious realization of the teacher. That's where you must sit.
That is how your attention gets hooked to where you can get your 50% of your intelligence. You got to be in their presence so your attention is hooked on what they are saying and only what they are saying and nothing else. Full attention, and it'll help you remember it. And that's intelligence. That's all intelligence is. Thanks, Swami.
So AI tools like ChatGPT will probably never put you out of a job in the end.
Probably not.
A lot of people, well, that's a good thing, I would say. A lot of people nowadays, and this is moving to the next topic, the meaning crisis. A lot of people nowadays turn to physical, spiritual teachers, sit in their vicinity for meaning, purpose, wisdom. And that is because a lot of people have lost a source of meaning and purpose. Many scholars say the same, but in popular culture, this is also a widespread notion. Now, how do you think, Bernardo, this happened? What has contributed? So causal connections are always hard, but what do you think contributed to this contemporary meaning crisis?
I began the story already, how science began and how the Enlightenment went into the Industrial Revolution and how in the 19th century we started believing stuff that had only social, political, and psychological reasons to be put forward. At around middle of the 19th century with Darwin, the bourgeoisie thought that's the coup de grace against the church because they still had a domain over the origin of life and now no longer. So, okay, now we got rid of them, right? And in the early 20th century, we saw the reflections of that in logical positivism. The notion that the only reality is that which we can directly access through experiment or through observation, which is incredibly arrogant. Why would monkeys be able to perceive everything that is salient about the world, about reality, right? And then we saw that in behaviorism towards the middle of the 20th century. Behaviorism is one of those fantastic dilemmas that only in the depths of nonsense.
I needed this. So, again, thank you too on YouTube who recommended this or requested it. I really appreciate it. I needed this. Like, for real, for real. I'm one of the people that is hard to not be materialistic about everything because it's just how we think over here. It's a default setting and it's hard to get around. But I needed this. Thanks.
Sense can arise, which is we can't explain consciousness, right? We can't explain. So we would say that it doesn't exist. Consciousness is behavior. All there is behavior. Everything else doesn't exist. Now, when you can't explain something, in order to not lose face, you have to say it doesn't exist, even though the thing saying that it doesn't exist is the very thing that's supposed not to exist.
That's what I'm saying. It makes it start to get weird, and that's when people over here turn away from it because they think it's impossible. But if you put your mind to it, everything's possible. And people in the West, I'm speaking to you right now. Open your brain up. Think outside the box. It doesn't have to make sense to you. It is under zero obligation. You have to figure it out yourself.
There is a reason for that trajectory. It still holds momentum. We collected a handsome payoff because of that in terms of economic prosperity, you could say, and also psychologically. We've reaped the biggest psychological payoff in the history of humanity, which is we got rid of the fear of what we will experience after we are dead. That is the single greatest fear humanity has always had. The church used it for 1,000 years to have complete control over the West, since the fall of Rome all the way into the beginning of the Renaissance. That's from 400 to 1400. That's 1,000 years in which an institution without an army, well, they had the Templars for a little while, but an institution without an army controlled an entire continent on the back of this one greatest fear.
That's wild.
Well, we got rid of it because you're not going to be there after you die. There will be no other conscious state. There's nothing to fear. All of your problems, all of your regrets, all of your anxieties are guaranteed to come to an end at the moment of your death, whether you believe it or not. And lo and behold, we do believe it today. Now, the problem is it's been long enough that we now take it for granted. We no longer realize that we purchased this at a great price. We no longer see what we purchased. Now we only see the price. And the price is you got rid of that anxiety, but your life has become meaningless. And now we only see that because the other one, we think we cash that in. Now, we take it for granted now. The price is too high. It is an unsustainable state of affairs in any culture. It's not going to last 300 years. Something is going to give because it contradicts reality. It flies in the face of reality. It is based on a set of incoherent assumptions and incoherent derivations from incoherent assumptions. It's not going to live long. Very short, in fact. The problem is we live even shorter. So we don't feel the ebb and flow of cultural history. It's already changing.
It makes us kick the can down the road in every aspect, and that's why it's hard for us to progress forward as a species, as a civilization, is because we're stuck in that loop.
Eminent neuroscientists are no longer physicalists. Eminent physicists are no longer physicalists. One came out online the other day. I don't know whether you saw that. It's a new Turok. The
Metaphysics are just as real as regular physics. I made a video on the 12 laws of metaphysics. I'll drop a link right here in case you want to check it out next. I'll also put it in the description. I'm going to shut up.
Director Emeritus of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics in Canada, which is the world's cathedral of theoretical physics, like CERN is the world's cathedral for experimental physics. He came out and said, yeah, I sympathize with these idealist folk. I'm not a physicalist. He said that to Koch in Theories of Everything. Yeah, a month or two ago. And there are more. And I can't tell you because a lot of people still require that certain conversations be held in confidence, which I understand. There are careers at stake, personalities at stake. But no, it's not going to last, thankfully. So the meaning crisis is a temporary illness. It's going to be cured.
And Swami about to pass
so
out.
You see already maybe a tentative shift emerging towards a new worldview, away from the worldview that contributed or maybe even caused the meaning crisis, but at least contributed to it. So, Swamiji, do you also see people in search of sources of meaning and purpose because they've lost it?
Yes, that's true. Perhaps a little more here in the West than in India, but it's becoming a very much a flat society all across the world, a similar culture everywhere. And here we do have a crisis of meaning. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if you have a string of zeros, you still have zero. If you put a 1 before the zeros, then every zero has some value. And even if you don't have any of the zeros, the 1 still has value. And he didn't explain any further. But I remember this young scientist, Bengali scientist. He had gone for an international conference in Japan. And he came back and he told the story to me that the organizer of the conference was a Japanese scientist. So they were loosening up over drinks after the sessions. And this Japanese scientist confided in this youngster that, you know, I'm at the top of my field. I have written all these books. They're recommended in university departments. I organize international conferences. I have the maximum citations. I have a family, good car and place. And then he said, but it's all 0, 0, 0. And he started crying. And then this young man, he said, I don't know what, but I just told him the story of the 1 and the zeros. And this Japanese scientist said, who said that? I told him that this Bengali mystic in the late 19th century. He's a smart guy. Yeah, so we are all searching for that 1, which will hold all the zeros of our life together.
I love that.
The more sensitive we are, the thing is we also have a world of distraction. So you can spend several years being distracted by social media and, you know, the things which are happening around a fast life.
Very
Manhattan,
easy.
New York is
Very easy to do and get lost in. Very, very easy. That's what it's designed for, guys. It's designed to steal your attention. It knows what to throw in your face when to throw it, and yes, it's designed to steal your attention. Notice I said steal, because it is stealing. You need to put that attention to something greater. Here I am talking to a damn camera lens. Practice what you preach. It's hard. I'm gonna shut
with
up.
a city
Let's
that
finish
never
this.
sleeps.
Final
So everybody's
home
sleep
stretch
deprived.
here, guys. Let's see. 20 more minutes
If there,
left.
you don't
Easy
have
money.
much time to feel the emptiness of life before it's quickly covered over with this or that distraction. But you can't deny it forever. It will creep up on you sometime or the other. And so we are all searching for that one which will give value to the zeros.
Ooh, I love that. We're all searching for the one to give value to all our zeros, man. And you can look at that in multiple ways. You know, let's digest that for a second. Yeah.
We keep on collecting in life.
Thank you for that answer.
Beautiful.
Many spiritual seekers or many people at large will maybe for some time be able to run away from this feeling of nihilism or a void, a loss of meaning, but at some point they do turn towards this question: what is the meaning of life? Maybe not even my life, but my life in general. And when they do, some of them turn to Advaita Vedanta. And at least in non-dualist circles in Western countries, moksha is seen, realization, enlightenment, as the ultimate source of meaning and purpose. Could you explain what is moksha?
Moksha is liberation. There are two ways of putting it. One is it makes good sense in the Indian context. Because in the Indian context, multiplicity of lives, life, birth, death, rebirth, and many, many lives. This is taken as axiomatic. All the Indian traditions, be they as different as Hinduism, various schools of Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, or Sikhism, they all believed in this multiple lives. This is sort of axiomatic. They didn't really push that any further, investigate. They took it that this is there.
That's y'all's default setting. I love it.
It is not a satisfactory state of affairs. As one of the Upanishads says is, unless you are enlightened, you will go from death to death. Could have said the same thing in a more cheerful tone, from birth to birth, but no, they chose, you'll be chased from death to death. The one who sees multiplicity here. That's the original Upanishadic language. For the one who sees multiplicity here, that one will go from death to death. So coming out of the cycle of birth and death, and realizing your own infinite nature, then this going from death to death stops. Why does it stop? The logic is that we are compulsively trying to fulfill ourselves. And that is what provides the psychic fuel, which makes us keep on taking body after body after body. And you cannot fill up an infinite vacuum with a finite world. Only the infinite can fill up the infinite. So, and the infinite is, you are already that. That's the great tragedy or the amazing thing about it. You are already what you are seeking. And so the non-dualists say that when you realize that, this whole apparent...
You are already what you are seeking. If we learned anything from this hour and a half, it is that. You are already what you are seeking for. You know why you don't get what you already want, or you know you don't always get what you want? It's because you already have it.
This process of multiple lifetimes and going from death to death will cease, or its apparent nature will become clear. It's not an ultimate reality. Another way of putting the same thing is, if you don't believe in multiple lifetimes and karma and rebirth, just the simple fact of suffering and overcoming suffering, that is moksha.
Could you briefly relate this to Jivan Mukti? And then I'll ask Bernardo afterwards to interpret this from an analytic idealist perspective.
That's a beautiful question. Jivan Mukti, moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Many philosophies in India, multiple schools, not Advaita Vedanta, but many other schools, they believe it's something that's possible you become enlightened, and the point of death, then it stops and it's done. But it's not something that you have full enlightenment while living. Whereas Advaita Vedanta makes Jivan Mukti the goal of spirituality. While you are here, and as in this world, in this body, in this personality, and yet fully enlightened and fully free, living this life as long as the body lasts. That's called Jivan Mukti. And so that is a possibility according to Advaita Vedanta. I just read this, I mentioned it earlier today, this phrase used by a medieval non-dualist, Shankara Bharati. He says these non-dualists are people with three eyes wide open. Visparita lochana trestu vedantina, which is Sanskrit for wide open. Visparita means wide open. Three eyes are wide open, these non-dualists. What are the three eyes? The two eyes are, of course, this. If you have these two eyes open, you're like everybody. You're seeing the world. If you close these two eyes, well, you are in your inner world. Either you are unhappy or you are meditating or something, but you're shutting out the world. But these non-dualists have both eyes open and they can see the world, but they also have the third eye of knowledge open, of knowing what this is for the first time. What am I and what this is? And this frees them. In the midst of all of these limitations, you are limitless and free. That is Jivan Mukti.
That's beautiful.
Non-dualism has this as the goal.
Very clear. Thank you, Swamiji. So Bernardo, could you explain what Swamiji just explained, but then in the terms of analytic idealism? Is that possible?
I can never do justice to it. It will always be a pancaked cartoon.
Of course.
So the value will be that maybe it helps, because I'm one of you, it helps you give yourself intellectual permission to open yourself up to what he has to say. Under analytic idealism, what we call the personal self is not who we really are. It's just a dissociated process. In other words, the person is something consciousness is doing. It's not what you are. It's something what you really are is doing. You're doing this. It's doing Bernardo Kastrup. It's doing you. It's doing him. It's not a thing. It's a doing, a process. What you really are is the whole thing. And there is a doing within the whole thing. So when that doing interfaces with the rest, it's a journey of self-discovery. You are sort of dancing with yourself by proxy. You adopt a point of view within yourself, and then you traverse yourself. So the journey of life is a journey of self-discovery. Whether you want it or not, whether you're enlightened or not, the question is, will you know that it is that? It is that, but will you know that it is that? And I think Swamiji alluded to this knowing of what this actually is. Of course, this brings existence to a whole other level. It's sort of at a higher level. So that's the simple answer under analytic idealism. Keep in mind that analytic idealism, unlike Advaita Vedanta, makes concessions. So it surrenders things that it knows is true in order to be accessible. There are other traditions in the East that make those concessions as well. Advaita Vedanta doesn't. Advaita Vedanta goes straight to what it is, uncompromising, whether you like it or not, whether it's tough or not. Analytic idealism concedes space-time, because when an idealist describes existence as the patterns of excitation of a field of subjectivity, you're conceding space and time right there. A field exists in space. Vibrations unfold in time. And these are enormous concessions that are completely unjustified. There is no space-time out there. Space-time are the parameters of the dashboard. Space-time is the way our cognitive system organizes information about the world so we don't become overwhelmed. It's like a filing system. It has filing cabinets. Space-time coordinates are different drawers in your filing system. You put things in their specific drawers. You organize information about that way. What really exists, of course, beyond space-time. There is a lot, not as long as, of course, the Eastern tradition, which is at least 3,500 years old, but since Kant and Schopenhauer, even the West is saying that now space-time are derivative. And today, with the loop quantum gravity, at least time is a derivative. But we know from relativity that space-time are only one thing, so space must be derivative as well and not fundamental. And then the question is, what is that which is beyond space-time? Whatever it is, we can talk about it coherently because language presupposes space-time. Subject and object are separated in space. Past tense, future tense adopts time. So whatever it is, we can't say. Monkeys can't say reality, right? Why would they? We have been running around sporting an intellect for maybe 50,000 years. It's nothing. It happened yesterday. We're babies. So there's a lot we can't say. Analytic idealism concedes all that in order to say something, because that's all a Western philosopher can do. An Eastern philosopher can show it to you, so you get there yourself. A Western philosophy doesn't have that skill. A Western philosophy can just describe, and descriptions have limitations. Of course, the ultimate thing is to go there yourself and see. And I'm far from an enlightened being. I did have my moments,
I disagree. He seems very enlightened.
I think we all have our moments. I had a moment once I was having dinner with two friends in a restaurant, very noisy place, and then suddenly I realized that nothing and everything are the same thing. I don't know.
Boom. There we go. Nothing and everything are the same thing. The only single thing is everything. Shout out Alain Baptiste III. What up, bro?
Where the hell that came from? But suddenly I realized that the past is an experience in the present. When you were in the past, it wasn't present. The future is an expectation in the present. When the future comes, it's the present. So it never comes. The past is a memory you experience now. The future is an expectation you experience now. Everything is always now. But how big is the now? Well, you can always partition it in past, present, and future. By the time I start saying a word, oh, it's past. By the time I start saying now, oh no, it's gone. It's past. So the present is infinitely small, but everything is in it.
Ooh.
So everything and nothing are the same thing. That's the only access I have ever had to what is behind space-time.
It's fucking deep.
One more point in regard to Jivan Mukti. I think this is, at this point, I can introduce this question of spiritual practice. Meditation and devotion, moral perfection, selflessness. What's the point of all of that? All of these spiritual paths, both Eastern and Western, they prescribe spiritual practice and give a lot of importance to it. The reason for that is twofold. One side of it is in order to prepare us for that moment of enlightenment, that realization. Oh, this is what it is. I never saw this earlier. But that won't come unless we are prepared to receive it and to hold it, to make it a living reality for us. So that's one purpose of spiritual practice. And then they found, after post-enlightenment, the job is still not done. Unless the spiritual practices have been completed to a high level of excellence, we'll still have a problem with Jivan Mukti. So these questions are raised. Arjuna raises this question at least twice in the Bhagavad Gita. And other Advaitic texts, they raise this question. They call it the person of the sage of stabilized wisdom. The words are very interesting. Stabilized wisdom. Many people say, I get it, but I can't live it. Or it's fleeting, or it goes away. How do you stabilize that wisdom? And so the second purpose of all spiritual practices is to stabilize that wisdom, to make it livable, that you can live it in life. You can put it into practice. So their moral life, selflessness, devotion, meditation, all of them have a big impact.
Now we're almost at the end of this dialogue, but this, what you just mentioned, Swamiji, just brings up one more question, and I'll end with this and then see if you want to add anything, and then we're going to wrap up. And the question is, something has emerged, particularly in Western cultures, that is called Neo-Advaita. And Neo-Advaita, if I create a caricature here, often does away with what you just said. There is no path, there's nothing to do, nowhere to go, tattvamasi. You are that, so nothing to do, nowhere to go. What is your thought? What are your thoughts on Neo-Advaita?
It's both true and pernicious and bad. It's bad because it's precisely because it's true. it is true that you are Brahman, that the limitless reality is you right now. It always has been. We have no choice about that. We couldn't be anything else even if you wanted to be. But it's bad because it doesn't solve our problem. The whole reason why we are coming to Advaita or to any tradition, to Buddhism, to analytic idealism, is to understand and to live it, to solve our problems. And if put in this way that you are Brahman, and we go, and nothing else. Well, nothing happened. And then they'll tell you nothing is supposed to happen. Well, still nothing happened. So in traditional Advaita, what they do is, yes, you are Brahman. And then we scratch our heads and say, yeah, but I don't really get it. Your problem is ignorance. And the solution for ignorance is knowledge. And the knowledge comes from hearing, reasoning, and meditating. Well, I've been doing that, attending lots of Vedanta seminars, but I still don't have that knowledge. Your problem is restless mind.
Yes.
And restless mind has to be, the solution is focused mind.
Lack of attention. Intelligence is 50% attention and 50% memory.
And there's a whole range of meditative practices. In Vedanta, they're called upasana, which gives you a focused mind. And then we say, yeah, but I've been trying to meditate for decades and I just fall asleep. All right, it's very boring. Your problem is impure mind. And the solution is pure mind. And the method for pure mind is karma yoga, dharmic, ethical lifestyle. So now you have the whole matrix of spiritual practice. You said you're Brahman, but I don't get it. Then knowledge is required. And for that, the knowledge practices, dhyana yoga. But knowledge is not coming. Then the restless mind. Then focused mind is necessary. And for focus, mindfulness and other practices are recommended. But I fall asleep when I try mindfulness, so it's very boring. Impure mind. Then to purify the mind, a whole range of ethical practices and karma yoga is recommended. Now you have a whole matrix of things to do, which will ultimately take you to that point that you are Brahman, and you always were. This is what Neo-Advaita seems to skip over. Now, I don't want to apply the label across the board. There are some genuine teachers who point this out also.
Thank you. Very clear. Now, we're coming to the end, but first, is there anything you would like to add, Swamiji?
I could ask Bernard this, I think what has been bothering me for many, many years is, in our culture, it seems that science has a monopoly of truth, or at least claims a monopoly of truth. What science is talking about is real, it's true. On the other hand, religion seems to offer something that is meaningful and valuable, at least in its modern spiritual form, it's meaningful and valuable. So here you have truth, but it often seems meaningless, empty. And there you have something valuable worth aspiring for, but is it true? Can we have both? Will analytic idealism will offer a believable, valuable truth?
Philosophers in general, they are trying to articulate something that at least gets close to truth. Science, people who think that science has all the answers, I don't think they understand what science is, which unfortunately is the case for some science spokespeople who are actually not doing science. They're just talking about it. Science is a method to allow us to predict what nature will do next.
That's a good way of putting it.
Its theories are models of nature that tell us in advance what will happen next. Predictions, that's how scientific theories are validated or disproven. They make predictions and then we check what did nature actually do. If it's the same as the prediction, then the theory survives, otherwise it's disproven. Science has nothing to say about what nature is. It's fundamentally beyond the scientific method, which is based on setting up an experiment and seeing what nature would do. It doesn't reach into the depth of ontology, of what nature is. Science is a set of convenient fictions. Nature behaves as though there were quantum fields and space-time. These fictions allow us to make predictions that can be validated.
It's just another way of trying to understand what we're seeing, just the physical aspect of what we're seeing instead of like the energy and frequency aspect that is the true nature of being.
doesn't mean that nature is that. These are convenient fictions. So I don't think science can ever replace what the traditions of the Indus Valley are.
I think it's beautiful to blend both of them. Science is beautiful as long as you don't get too locked into it. You got to have an open mind to be able to walk that fence line. Religion, spirituality, I'd like to call it. I'm not really sure about organized religion, really, honestly. Spirituality mixed with science, that's this channel, and we just call it philosophy.
Are trying to do. To think that science can replace that is a disservice to science. We start projecting something onto the methodology of science that methodology cannot answer. And that can lead to a lot of confusion. So the truth is what is, right? Science has nothing to say about that.
It leaves the playing field open then, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good job. If you made it this far, take a breath, because what we just witnessed wasn't a conversation. It was a dismantling of the illusion we call reality. Swamiji and Bernardo didn't just talk about consciousness. They revealed it as the very fabric of existence. Whether through Advaita Vedanta dream metaphor or Analytic Idealism dashboard analogy, both traditions converge on one radical truth. We are not in the world is in us. The hard problem of consciousness? It's not a puzzle to solve. It's a mirror reflecting the limits of materialist thinking. And AI? It may simulate intelligence, but it cannot simulate the spark of awareness that truly makes us us and alive. So what do we do with the insight? We stop chasing the tail of reductionism and start sitting with the mystery. We stop asking how consciousness arises from matter and start realizing that matter itself is a ripple in consciousness. If that cracked open something in you, if you felt the goosebumps, the silence, the shift, then hit subscribe, please. Because this isn't just philosophy, it's a call to wake up. Until next time, stay curious, stay conscious, and keep dropping that knowledge. I love you guys. Go love somebody that you don't like. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend. Leave a comment if you have a recommendation for me to something to check out. Love you guys. Be good. Go love somebody you don't like.